Have you tried Roblox?
I play Roblox.
You should try Roblox, it's a better game and it's not violent.
Alright, I guess.
So, I wonder how many of you actually expected me to make a full-length video about this on my channel. Truth be told, I didn't. I didn't grow up with Roblox, and I've always gotten the impression that Roblox as a platform was this kind of kiddie cesspool that was a mix of terrifying, hilarious, confusing, and downright awful. And that still holds up for 95% of it, probably. However, given how massive and varied the experiences are in Roblox, it's no surprise that some involve prehistory, and prehistoric survival games in particular. However, even then it's a mixed bag. The dinosaur survival game situation on Roblox is just as bad as it is with paid games, maybe even worse. Almost all of these games have a head developer that is on an FBI watch list, homophobic, racist, or a combination of all three. I heard Prior Extinction is decent though. The real gems of this subgenre, however, are the survival games that don't involve dinosaurs. Kenozoic survival is based on Kenozoic life, and has my utmost recommendation, even if currently too small to do a full video on at the moment. Instead, this video is about a game that has modern animals, Wild Savanna. By far my favorite game on Roblox, and the #1 reason why you shouldn't buy Animalia. While survival games you actually pay for, like The Isle and Path of Titans, fail to keep my interest, with Wild Savanna it's hard for me to not have fun. There is just something about it that allows it to be a genuinely enjoyable experience, despite, just being just a Roblox game. I think this comes down to two factors. First, it has basically no commitment to speak of. It is pure sandbox. You just go in and play whatever you want. Now on its own this wouldn't be great, obviously, and in fact it'd probably be a negative. However, on top of this, Wild Savanna has some of the most in-depth mechanics I have seen from an animal survival game. Animals can walk, trot, and switch between a standard run and a faster training sprint, depending on the situation. Leopards can climb trees, warthogs can burrow, storks and eagles can fish, and it also has an extremely in-depth combat system. While some matchups do just involve biting matches, they aren't actually all that common. For the most part, simply bringing someone's health to 0 is not the goal in combat. Hyenas and lions need to latch onto larger prey to exhaust them, bringing them to the ground to finish them off. The prey can fight back, being able to turn and jink to either shake them off or retaliate. Leopards and other cats pounce their prey, starting a quick-time event where escape or death is determined by a minigame that both predator and prey participate in. Some animals can dodge too, along with the game having some of the most lifelike animal animations I've ever seen. All of this together makes for an oddly immersive and engaging experience, while the sandbox nature of it means that anything can happen. You got the main hotspot on the map where everyone is murdering each other in a free-for-all, while in most other places it's more isolated, and people can act more realistically, or not, if they want. It's about as chaotic as most people think the African savanna is, while still being fun.
Welcome to Africa, we have, that.
With a massive update on the way, I wanted to make a tier list for the game in its current state, as a tribute, if anything. If there's concern about this being outdated soon, I can see myself making a proper sequel. We'll see. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we get started on the tier list, I'd like to thank my good friend Daubany. She made this fancy tier list and its graphics that I'll be using for this video. Along with that, I must say that how I rank these guys will be a bit different than in the past. This is a sandbox game. Purely surviving is not the name of the game. It's more about just a simple fun. Fun is not an objective metric, so how about engagement? That sounds better. What does this mean? Balance here matters, but there's a lot more. Does the creature have the stats and mechanics to keep you engaged in the game? A part of this is making sure the animal isn't folded instantly by everything, but it also just means combat in general. Can it hunt and kill effectively as a carnivore? Can it defend itself or bring the offensive as a herbivore? This will inevitably mean that some herbivores will get the short end of the stick. I will spoil that now. But I think that we can all agree that taunting carnivores into chasing us is fun, but is not something that will last you a few hours. It's why I really want herbivores to be able to have jousts with each other in the future. That would be something fun to do in between trying to not get eaten. Alright, to the tier list itself, starting from the bottom and working our way up. F tier is for the animals that legitimately fail at what they're supposed to do. Under most circumstances, playing these is a downright liability. First, a rather expected inclusion unfortunately, is the cheetah. Now, contrary to popular belief, cheetahs in the wild are not being outcompeted by other predators. Their current endangerment is due to factors related to humans. For the most part, their rates of hunting success, feeding, and reproduction can just account for the amount that they get pushed around by these bigger carnivores. Regardless, this is a game, not real life, and as a result in Wild Savanna they are kinda bitch-made. Against other carnivores, they have literally no answer. Every other predator can press them off a kill or fold them like tissue paper. Even if you escape the initial attack, its stamina pool is so low that determined players can catch up to you if they really want to. The one compliment I can give them is that, yes, they're fast. Hilariously faster than everything else. You would figure that this would help in hunting prey, but it really doesn't. Most herbivores are way stronger than cheetahs, so they probably won't succeed in bringing them down if they catch them. That leaves gazelle and surprisingly warthogs as their only consistent prey items. Even with these they struggle, because the pounce hitbox on the cheetah is awkwardly tight, and you move so fast that you'll usually phase through them while attacking, meaning you miss and might not get another chance before you run out of stamina and you have to stop the chase. Cheetahs are definitely Wild Savanna on hard mode, in my opinion. The other member of F tier is the painted wolf. Painted wolves are different from cheetahs because they definitely can be decent in the right circumstances. Get a large pack, and they are arguably one of the best hunters on the prairie. With high speed and the largest stamina pool of any animal, they will be extremely efficient in taking down and killing herbivores. However, it is this reliance on large groups that is ultimately their downfall. Individually, they are absolutely pathetic in terms of damage and durability. A single zebra or wildebeest is an even fight for a pack, and it's only when the wolves get to 5 or more individuals that they can really hunt these in relative safety. That is a oddly high amount of commitment and synergy for an animal to do well. Also, lions completely dominate painted wolves in all situations. A single lioness can mow down a pack without much difficulty if they let it. Now, let's compare this to hyenas. They are much more powerful and reliable, with just 2 of them being able to hold their own in most situations, including against lions, while also being only slightly worse at persistence hunting. Hyenas are just better than them in almost every situation. Definitely the better pick overall. There's a reason you don't see painted wolves outside of being honorary members of hyena packs. I am not going to be spending much time on D tier because there is really not much to these animal choices. With the Thompson's gazelle and impala, your one and only game plan is running away. That is literally it. These two are what I meant by engagement being an issue with some herbivores. While you can survive with them just fine, which is what keeps them out of F tier, their engagement is so low because of how limited their gameplay is. With the Thompson's gazelle being better than the impala only because it's a smaller target. Moving on. The main member of C tier is Pumbaa himself. Warthogs have a lot of traits that make them interesting and fun. First off, those tusks do not play around. Against painted wolves and hyenas, warthogs can actually do quite well. They basically have no answer to warthogs when attacking from the front, and have to rely on a pack to bring one down. Outside of this though, they run into problems. First, warthogs are really vulnerable to cats, with it basically being a game over if they get grabbed. Warthogs can hold off cheetahs and leopards if they're good enough, but it's basically delaying the inevitable. They also absolutely suffer against lions. Warthogs are actually quite slow compared to the other herbivores, so don't really have an answer to lions chasing them outside of just hoping that they can escape. One cool ability that warthogs do have is the ability to burrow, basically morphing the map however they want. While this is a really cool ability, with them being able to make cool bases for themselves and the occasionally hilarious map art, this really doesn't change its viability. Right now, there's no way for the warthogs to make burrows that they can enter but their predators can't. It's a fun feature rather than an escape option as it currently stands. Next up, B tier is a weird middle ground. They aren't downright amazing like in A tier, but they also don't have obvious flaws like C tier and below do. This tier belongs to the hartebeest and the topi. A few months ago, these guys would have been in D tier with the gazelles. But they've been buffed recently to where they actually can defend themselves. When in lower numbers, they can handle painted wolves, and sometimes hyenas too. Still need to watch out for big cats and decent hyena players though. They still aren't the best at defending themselves, which is why they are in an A tier, but at least being capable of holding their own, while still being able to run really well against things they can't handle, means that they're pretty decent. Before we get into A tier, there's an entire subset of animals in Wild Savanna that I would like to discuss on their own. The birds. With the ability to fly and scour the map however they want, with basically no resistance, birds are often picked for different reasons than the other animals. Birds are great for exploring the map, finding other players, and being spectators while everyone else is fighting for their lives.
Let's get ready to rumble!
The main downside to playing them is that they don't have night vision. So while herbivores, which also don't have night vision, can afford to hunker down, birds rely on spotting things far away while in flight, which they can't do in the dark. Their rankings on the tier list are more about how interesting they are to play and how great they do their role, rather than just viability. The worst bird is definitely the Cape Turtle Dove, which is going in D tier. It's here for the same reason as the gazelles. It can survive fine, but there's not much to it aside from being cute. Eventually, you're probably going to get bodied by an eagle, stork, or whatever else merely breeds in your direction. Next in C tier is the white-backed vulture. If the lapid-faced vulture didn't exist, he'd likely be much higher. But at the moment, it is straight up inferior in every way. It is not as strong as the lapid-face, so it often gets bullied at kill sites, and it can't eat large corpses without them already having been partially eaten first, or broken in two. I'm curious as to how the two vultures will be set apart in the future, because right now, white-backed vultures are kind of just a waste of a slot. This is further emphasized by marabou storks being able to scavenge just as good as them, while also doing way more. The marabou stork is definitely the jack of all trades of the birds. Not only can it scavenge, but it can fish too, while also being decent in terms of strength and mobility on the ground. The big downside to the marabou is that it can't defend itself against aerial attacks. Eagles can fight in the air, and vultures can defend from the ground, but marabous can't do either. So we're forced to either leave the area or just deal with the harassment. Aside from this though, they are pretty great. The last of the birds are the eagles and lapid-faced vulture, all of which are going in A tier. The eagles have the benefit of being the fastest of the birds by a country mile, along with having their own perks for hunting and fishing. The African fish eagle is the grade A wild savanna fishing bird. Martial eagles have it a bit worse, since hunting the AI rabbits that are around the map is a lot more awkward, but they're also the go-to bird for PvP, so it balances out. Lapid-faced vultures, meanwhile, are the dominant scavengers. They can eat any dead thing they find, while also having the power to basically dominate any other birds they come across. Overall, Wild Savanna's cast of birds are really fun, acting as the icing on the cake for Wild Savanna's roster. Beginning with the rest of A tier, we have one of Wild Savanna's most dominant predators, the spotted hyena. If you want to roam around with friends as a band of predators, then look no further. Hyenas have all the ingredients to make for a fun pack hunter. While their speed is only average, their endurance is absolutely amazing, able to run for minutes with only minimal stamina loss. This not only makes escape difficult for prey, but it also allows distances to be covered very quickly. Running everywhere is a perfectly viable option with these guys. When it comes to hunting and fighting, just a pair of hyenas are able to hold their own in most situations. Zebras and wildebeest are risky but perfectly viable prey options, and almost all other predators can't stand up to them. Hyenas have the privilege of being the only other predator that can reasonably stand up to lions. As long as you have each other's backs, lions can't simply overpower hyenas, and need to be careful, especially when they can't always run away and can end up surrounded. In turf wars between lions and hyenas, it is often a numbers game, except when male lions are involved. Male lions in most situations can bulldoze through hyenas. Aside from this though, hyenas have all the potential to dominate. There's still a major downside though. I would personally consider hyenas to be at the bottom of A tier, because while they can be and have been dominant predators, this is definitely not the case when alone. Solo hyena players have the luxury of being the punching bag for every other common playable in the game. Want to play hyena alone? Have fun trying to hunt anything when most herbivores can horn, trample, and batter you into oblivion, along with being the target for leopards and any bloodthirsty lion in the area. As a group though, hyenas are not to be trifled with, and are my recommended carnivores to play with a group of friends. In the complete opposite direction from the premier pack hunter of Wild Savanna, we have what I would argue is the best choice for a solo player, the leopard. The leopard is my favorite animal to play in Wild Savanna, because it has the perfect combination of strength and utility to become an underdog in the world full of lions and hyenas. Leopards are capable of handling almost any animal that isn't a lion or giant herbivore in a 1v1 situation. The smaller size of the leopard makes it work great as an ambush predator, while still being able to bring down most things that it comes across. While it can be risky, zebra and wildebeest make for consistent enough prey items, and leopards are strong enough to where they need to be respected by most other carnivores, especially hyenas. However, with its poor stamina and average speed, you can imagine how easy it would be for an animal like this to be overwhelmed. By a lion, an aggro herbivore, a hyena pack, so on. For any other animal on the roster, those kinds of situations would be death sentences. However, luckily for you, leopards can climb trees. This one ability, to be completely safe from danger, is what elevates the leopard so highly for me. Whether it be a group of lions or hyenas trying to kill you, or a hunt that failed, climbing a tree provides guaranteed sanctuary. Players can in theory try to camp you out, but an average Roblox player has an attention span of 5 minutes at most, making this a viable escape strategy. Playing leopard means playing it smart, picking battles carefully, weighing your options on how safe it is to be away from the trees, and being wary of those around you, which includes other leopards by the way. I can't recommend it enough. Next up in A tier are Wild Savanna's classic herbivores, the zebra and the wildebeest. I'm clumping these two together because they're both similar in a lot of ways, they just go about it a bit differently. While they are the token prey animals of Wild Savanna, these two have more than enough tools to keep themselves safe from attack. The hooves of the zebra and the horns of the wildebeest are formidable weapons, allowing these animals to bring the fight to any unprepared predator if needed. Painted wolves, hyenas, and leopards can take these as prey, but they need to be careful, as either of these can turn the tables very quickly if they know what they're doing. Sure, they can handle lions and need to run if they are outnumbered, but that goes for most animals in this game. Whether wildebeest or zebra is better for you depends on their methods of defending themselves and their escape options. Zebras are slower than wildebeest, but are capable of defending themselves from most angles with their kicks, including their behind mid-sprint. Wildebeest meanwhile have more of a blind spot, considering their weapons are only at the front, but they're faster and more nimble, able to escape things easier while also being able to quickly turn and attack through charging, whereas zebras are more passive. I personally think wildebeest are better off than zebras, but it's very much personal preference. The final members of F tier are two titanic herbivores. I was heavily debating putting these two in S tier, and you can still debate for that, since they are that powerful and good at what they do. Let me explain. First is the giraffe. The reticulated giraffe is the biggest animal in the whole game, and as a result it literally stands above the rest of the cast in its presence. They are so big that the only animal in the game that can threaten them are lions, and even then they have more than enough ways to deal with them. The first, and by far most effective way to deal with lions as a giraffe, is by simply running away. Giraffes are way faster than most people expect, and considering how big they are compared to lions, giraffes can usually just shrug off the lion's attempts to slow it down and escape. The way I see most giraffes die is because they decide that they want to fight, which to be fair, they can defend themselves extremely well. The kicks of a giraffe are by far the fastest ways for any lion to meet Mufasa, but there's some catches to it. Killing a giraffe for lions is a massive undertaking, often requiring a small pride to accomplish over a long period of time and at high risk of death. However, the attacks of the giraffe are quite telegraphed, so they can be a lot more vulnerable to being brought down than people might expect. However, I'm only talking about the difference between Immortal and video game boss in terms of difficulty. Giraffes very much can and will wreck your shit. I've seen them bounce back from certain death more than once. In this same vein, you have the Cape Buffalo, the Black Death, the Widowmaker. African buffalo may not be as big or hit as hard as giraffes, but they more than make up for it with sheer tenacity and unstoppable momentum. Cape buffalo still has the size to where nothing is a problem unless it's a lion, and they can employ the same strategy of shrugging off lion attacks as they run away. But on top of this, they can charge and gourd attackers without really being able to be stopped. And because the buffalo's batters drain stamina, lions can find themselves pinned and gored to death outright. Lions can handle them through tackling them down as a group, but that fails if there's more than one, since buffalo are the only herbivores that can reliably attack in groups. Even a single buffalo can prove a challenge for a group of lions, but a whole herd is basically impossible to take on. This leaves buffalo as the primary resistance against lions completely dominating servers, and for that they get my respect. Finally, there is S tier. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Lions completely and utterly dominate every single corner of Wild Savanna. The number one question that needs to be asked before you play anything is, how do they deal with lions? Because they are just that omnipresent. Being a sandbox game, it's no surprise the majority of the player base would be the biggest and baddest apex predator. Lions can completely overtake most animals in most situations by themselves, and it gets even worse when you remember that they, live in prides. Not only are they really strong, but they probably have the most complexity and quality of life to them of any playable. They've clearly gotten a lot of attention by the dev, and this will maintain more attention by the player base. On top of this, while other animals in the game have sexual dimorphism, it is most pronounced in lions, to where they feel like subclasses. Lionesses are definitely the top tier of the two sexes in terms of efficiency. They are the fastest predator in the game that isn't the cheetah, while still having the power to take down most prey and predators. Male lions, on the other hand, are pretty crummy hunters, being outrun quite easily by most animals. However, they make up for this by being, by far, the most powerful carnivore in the game. They are an absolute game changer in wars against hyenas, able to shrug off attacks from them and basically tear them in half, while giving the extra power often needed to bring down giraffes and buffalo. The only downside to playing as a lion is that they're often a nightmare to play yourself, because other lions are so omnipresent that a group of lions will often get in your business and demand to be friends, or they'll just murder you. The reason why lions are S tier and not buffalo and giraffe is because of how lions can force themselves into basically any and all situations without restraint. Buffalo and giraffe can try to do that, but they at least have limitations. Giraffes are defensive rather than offensive, so when they try to charge at things, they can be worked around pretty easily. Buffalo are offensive, but they're also slow. Most animals can outrun them, and both also don't have night vision, so that limits them for a portion of the day. Lions have none of these restrictions, so they penetrate every single piece of Wild Savanna's gameplay. While you can dispute lions being the true kings of the Savanna, they are definitely the kings of Wild Savanna. Alright, that was the Wild Savanna tier list. I'd like to thank Domini once again for the tier list and graphics they see before you, and I'd like to thank you all for making it to the end of the video and for sticking with me so far throughout this channel. Some channel news: I have a Patreon now, with a link in the description. Now, I have never made money off my videos. In fact, I have never monetized a single video on this channel. Ever. So Patreon provides a way for you all to support me regardless. In order to make this worth it, I plan to release a new video every week, so hang tight for that. I have a lot of video ideas that I'm now going to be working on in force, involving topics like Beast of Bermuda, Jurassic World Dominion, and Evolve, now that it has come back to life. So if that's something that you're excited for, then stay tuned. Have a lovely good night, people. Love you all. Bye bye.